Before we begin, I just want to share a quick note. This conversation is for informational and community purposes only. It's not medical, mental health, or professional advice. We're sharing lived experience and perspective, and we encourage our listeners to seek support that's right for them. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Seen Not Fixed, a Spoonly podcast. I'm Nicole Pedra, and this is a space for honest, intimate conversations about chronic illness, caregiving, mental health, and the realities that don't usually get spoken out loud. Spoonly exists to remind you that even when you feel alone, you're not. We're sitting right beside you. And today's conversation is for you. Today on the show, we have Deidra Murphy. Deidra became a mom through adoption, inspiring the creation of her platform, The Map to Motherhood, which now supports and connects over 30,000 women navigating non-traditional paths to motherhood through her podcasts, webinars, and community spaces. Weinstein, LCSW, is a therapist bringing heart and humor back to mental health. Trust me, he is very funny. A husband and proudly goofy dad of two, he's based in Las Vegas and works with clients worldwide through his practice, Elevation, and as a host for the Dude Therapist podcast. All right, everyone. So I'm really excited to have you both here, Ellie and Deidra. I think today is going to be a great conversation, and you guys have actually a decent amount in common, although they really don't look like they do. So I want to go back to, because Valentine's Day is coming up, so I feel like talking about relationships is a good thing. I want to know, how did infertility and illness, affect your marriage, and in ways you didn't really anticipate, maybe ways that you didn't recognize at first, and then you were like, oh, this is really impacting us.
It's still affecting our marriage. I mean, here I was newlywed, and within a year of marriage, I stopped sleeping, and my husband thought it was his fault. He's going, is it me? Is it marriage? Are you not happy? Is it us? And I'm going, I think it was the fact that compounding, we did a lot of life changes in a really short amount of time and overwhelmed my system. I had never struggled with sleep prior to that. To this day, going through the insomnia battles, going through the ups and downs with health, my weight fluctuating, feeling insecure just as a woman, right? Not only with weight going up and down, but then here I am unable to do the thing I'm supposed to be able to do on this earth. Couldn't do it. And it's still a struggle we're going through. I'm still trying to get things back on track with female supplements and, counseling and things like that. And it's a battle to this day that I don't know how to completely fix it, but it's one of those systems that, you just keep trying and you keep trying, finding the time and at the end of the day when everybody's exhausted anyway to connect, and not just intimately, physically, but just emotionally. I'm not going to lie, it's difficult as parents to do that. Whether you have one kid or five, it's always going to be a struggle to find those moments.
And I totally understand that. I mean, my husband and I went through a period of time where he didn't have that much desire for me and made me feel really unattractive. So it really does mess with your brain in ways.
For me, as my wife has PCOS, there could be other things going on. We don't know, not for me to share. Sometimes I don't there is not a lot of drive on her end sexually. And then I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm not attractive enough. I guess I am getting fat. I guess I am disgusting. I guess my hair loss is impacting our marriage. But for me, with the chronic illness, it was more of, there were days where I was sick and couldn't help out and couldn't be present, which leads to resentment, leads to frustration, and not by anyone's fault. My wife is doing an amazing job by being a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful mother and an amazing wife. And it's just natural when more things fall on your plate than you expected, more things fall on your plate than you hoped that day, where you go, really? You're sick again? I know I have compassion for you. I know I love you and I care about you. Come on. We have to cancel another trip. We have to hold back we have to really wait to do Are you serious? Another time? And it's natural for there to be built-in tension and built-in resentment. And what I say to many couples, and I say to my wife and myself, is resentment is workable. It's when it gets to contempt. That's where it's hard to really fix and find that good. Resentment is workable. It's reversible. So it's just about communicating and talking and being honest with each other that, hey, I love you and I care about you. It is frustrating, but I'm not upset at you. I'm upset at the disease. I'm upset at Crohn's. I'm upset at insomnia. I'm upset at infertility. I'm not upset at you. And making sure the person and yourself, it's also for yourself, to realize that there's a distinction. And for me, infertility brought us closer because we were the only ones who understood what we were going through. So we had to have each other's backs. We had to be there for each other. So it was earlier on in our marriage where it really created the ability to have real hard conversations with each other and learn what that meant versus dealing with that later on, where we might have been able to build those building blocks, but we built the blocks because of infertility. We were forced to. We're kind of pushed in the corner to go, either you figure this out or you don't. And we were just, it really became a huge glue for us. And we still go through it. I mean, we still have to do IVF. I mean, I don't know when this is coming out, but like my wife is pregnant with our third kid through IVF. Everything still is a reality that we have to like schedules and worry about and figure out and pay for all these other things that you just
Right.
wouldn't have to think about. So it
Yeah.
is something that still is a very heavy burden.
So I am United States of America's Mrs. West Coast, and that leads directly into my platform, which I call the Map to Motherhood. And it's all about navigating and really exploring all the non-traditional ways to become a mom, whether it's IVF, surrogacy, adoption, fostering, even just hormone treatments. And in my webinar and series on my YouTube channel, we navigate each of those, whether it's the monetary considerations to ethical
Mhm.
and the discussions that you need to have with your partner to feel out what route is right for you. And I had to have that conversation with my husband. We had numerous conversations about it because after all of my check ins and my fertility treatments and hormones, I had to dig down deep and think, does IVF make sense for me and my body? I flat out
Mm,
asked my fertility specialist, if I go this route, will I suffer with sleep again? And she said, absolutely. Women that don't have chronic insomnia will struggle with sleep again once they go these routes. And I said, okay, pump the brakes, not for me. I'm not going to go into motherhood depleted. I looked
yeah.
at it as like a marathon. I like to run, and I was going, I wouldn't show up to race day not having slept the night before. I don't want to start motherhood already tired and exhausted. That's when the marathon starts. And through investigation and finding organizations that aligned with our values, I found a New Beginnings adoption agency in Boise,
Mm.
Idaho. And we signed up, and within a year's time, we were matched with a young 17-year-old woman that chose us, honored us to and entrusted us to parent her unborn child. And
That's
that,
amazing.
Mhm.
been in our my son's name is Declan. He just turned 4, and he's been in our arms since about 10 minutes old. We were there at the hospital just as if I had delivered myself, and it's been groundbreaking and life-changing since that moment on. And now it's my passion to help other women find the path that aligns with her goals and her family's next right move.
I really hope, I don't know, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your amazing organization, but like, I think there's so much pressure in today's society that if you're married and don't have kids, something's wrong with you. And
Mhm.
it's not true. You can have
Yeah.
a beautiful marriage and beautiful relationship without having children. If you want to have children and you can't, for whatever reason, there are options and beautiful ways to create a life for you and that dream. It doesn't have to die. The dream doesn't have to die. And that's what that infertility acceptance part is like this holy shnikes is like, is this dream I'm going to have, is this grief of accepting that life is not what I expect. It's not as easy as everyone makes it seem that you get married and boop, baby.
And then a dog and a white picket
Yeah,
fence.
and a picket fence and the whole thing, but that there is ways to find a semblance or a hint of that dream within reality that is your life.
And I think motherhood actually is one of those biggest societal norms, right? It's that there's a way females should have babies. Even the whole topic, I know my friends have gotten some, hate and stuff for the fact that they didn't breastfeed, right? Some
That's so
women look really
ridiculous.
down on that, but like, look, there's no perfect way to do everything, and people aren't inside other people's lives or their
The wrong
bodies
way
or
is
their
not
heads.
feeding your child. The right
Exactly. And
way
I just
is
feel
your
like
child having sustenance and
Right?
find whichever way that
And
is.
as a mom from adoption, if my child was struggling with food, I would have gotten plenty of formula, but thankfully, I was able to get donated breast milk during a formula crisis, right, at the height of COVID, And there are other routes too. But, at the end of the day, if I was running out of frozen breast milk in my giant freezer, would I have gone to Target and picked up as much formula as I could have? Absolutely. I would have made sure my child was fed.
And I think this really plays into, this chronic illness and stuff that people don't see, that they assume. I know, Nicole, you and I have spoken about this before, like this assumption that you look a certain way, you must be a certain way, you act a certain way, it seems like a certain way, and then people feel that they have the right to comment and hate on someone when they're not in your life. It's just like, it's just an insane world that we live in of social media, that because someone posts a picture or posts something or talks about something, that now you have the right to make them feel terrible for their choices when you're not in it.
But even if you think that something as non-political or divisive as adoption would be a good thing, the moment I went public online about my son and our journey to adoption, and I finally posted things after all was said and done and the ink was dry on the adoption process,
Mhm.
and as kind of a public figure and an influencer in that space, I actually received a ton of hate on my posts. People were saying awful things, that I ripped this child away from his biological mother. He will always carry those wounds and scars. He will never bond with me and my husband, and that I did a terrible thing. He would have been in a better situation had he been kept with biological mother. You understand the situation my child was in. He was not
No.
wanted by his biological mother. How is that better? And
Yeah,
there's just people that have this hate in their heart, and unfortunately, with the digital space and social media being a thing, they feel emboldened to say whatever they want. Now, granted, I got more positive than negative, but they still exist.
Yeah,
mhm,
and I think that's the important thing about doing it, right? Like, there are more people that you can help than those trolls, and that is kind of, your experience and the people who can relate but don't necessarily feel validated or justified.
yeah,
I potentially, if financial reasons and stuff works out, I would probably be doing a surrogate because we don't wanna have kids for a few years. I'm in my late 30s, we'll say. If we can afford it, like, it might be very taxing on my body, and we just don't know with the medications and stuff and having
for sure.
MS, how I'm gonna handle it, so it just makes sense. But I will be posting about that if I do that, and
Good.
you know what? If some people are not supportive, then that's on them, but like you're doing with your podcast, you're showing people other ways that you can become a parent, and I think that's important for women and men to feel like there's not one right way to do things.
And honestly, I think it's a lot, just to put myself down for a second, I think it's a lot more important for women, because I think there's that societal pressure of, like, it has to be done a certain way, and,
Mhm. I
like,
was trying to be fair. I was trying
no,
to
it's okay,
include
you don't have to be fair, it's okay.
stuff.
It's okay, but I think it's just a beautiful thing for women to know, like, that their dreams or their calling or their body, that they, have the ability to give birth, that they aren't failures, and that nothing is wrong with them as human beings and successful potential mothers, just because the classic route doesn't exist for them. Versus, like, the guy's like, "Oh, okay. I get it." Like, I think a lot of men would be, well, like, yes, there was a process of grief of not potentially having kids that I had to accept and go through, but I wasn't the one battling with, I guess my body is not really good as a woman. Like, so I think it's just a very important thing and a beautiful thing that you're doing to show the world that people are going to hate no matter what. I mean, you post about dogs, who will go cats. You post about cats, why not dogs? So what? Post what you want to post. And also, you don't have to post if you don't want to, and just enjoy your life. I got called, weak and not a man because I
Oh.
posted certain things about mental health. And I'm like, okay, good for you.
How can professionals and advocates avoid minimizing pain while still offering encouragement? I think that's a very fine line that a lot of people don't know how to toe.
I think people need to realize the fancy word called validation, right? And what validation really means is that I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to know where you're coming from. I don't have to even understand it. It's that I see that you have a feeling or emotion or a thought. You're struggling with something. You're dealing with something. I see it, and that is important. That's really what validation is for any couple, for any relationship person who's struggling in a relationship with validation. People get so stuck in the mindset of understanding. I have to get in your mind and have empathy. Stop with the empathy, start with the sympathy. Sympathy means I see you have feelings and feelings matter. period. Not your feelings, not I get your feelings. Screw that for a second. That's ideal. Beautiful. If you can get there, God bless you. But if not, start with the simple thing of, if you're a professional and someone's struggling and crying in your office because they are going through a hard thing with chronic illness, they feel crazy because everyone tells them that there's nothing there and that they're just making it up. Who cares? Be kind, be compassionate as a human to human. I had a supervisor, Dr. Stanley Rustin. I owe everything to him. And he said to me once, he goes, don't forget, as a therapist, you are a human with another human. Who cares if you've read more books than them? Who cares if you went to school? Just be a freaking human. And
Yeah.
so that's what it's all about. It's humans just being and connecting with other people. Don't put it down.
Just a story about that. One of the worst days that I had with my insomnia, this is pre becoming a mother, and I really wanted to end things. I had the worst day. And I drove to town and I checked in at an emergency walk-in clinic, just going, "Just put me out. Whatever you gotta do. Put an IV in me, give me something to knock me out." And I felt like nobody was connecting with me on a human to human level of just, this woman needs to shut her body down. And I keep being told, "There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. You can go check into Lord's Health Counseling Network, but then you're gonna have to go through the process of,
The
and then I'm going
72-hour watch hold. Yeah.
form self-harm." I just want something that will shut my body down, whether I go into if you got into a car accident, they'd IV you up and you'd fall asleep. Finally, I went to an ER walk-in clinic, an emergency room, and I felt a little bit heard and seen, validated, and thankfully that doctor gave me something just to put me out that night. I was like, even if it's only 24 hours that I get some sort of rest, I've been going for 3 days without sleep, just help my body shut down at least once. And that's when everything started to kind of shift for me, because I don't know if it was the fact that I put it out into the universe of how much I was hurting and failing to thrive, but the world connected my husband with Dr. Liz. That's my hypnosis therapist down in actually Florida, before telehealth was majorly a thing, before COVID. And she and I started working together back in 2019. And within a month of working with her, I was sleeping 4 hours a night. And it just started to slowly grow from there. So all that to say, like Ali was saying, connect with people on a human level and just make them feel heard. That would have been a significant difference at that first clinic that I went to, just feeling as though my needs were at least being understood.
Yeah, 100%.
I used to work in a psych unit when I was doing my internship to become a therapist. And there was nothing that I could have done to help them in those moments. It was some of the darkest places that people have ever been in their lives mentally. So, like, what am I supposed to do? Hey, it's going to get better. Just get back on that horse.
Oh, this
You
is
got it,
perfect.
dude. Like, that wouldn't have helped. All I did was sit there with them and hold their hand, look in their eyes, and say, I'm right here. I don't know what that means right now for you, and you don't know what that means. You just got admitted into a psych hospital with a lockdown unit because you said XYZ, or you are struggling with ABC, or whatever it is. Whatever reason you're here, and so am I. So, like, that's where we're going to start, is that I'm right here. And sometimes
Yeah.
just sitting there with that person. That's all it is.
Well, I was actually going to ask you, what does it look like? Because I know towing this line is really hard, right? So, what does it look like to hold on to hope, but still to honor that anger and grief and exhaustion? Like,
Yeah.
how do
So
you
there's
balance that?
there's a DBT, is dialectical behavioral therapy, way of looking at this, called radical acceptance. And it really is broken into like a three-parter. It's this happened, I feel, now what? And really it just starts off with just looking at the thing itself and saying, you know what? I am going through infertility. I have a chronic illness. It's putting it out in the world saying, this is a reality. I'm not crazy. I'm not nuts. This is true. This fact happened. Okay, well, what are the feelings that I'm going through? Hey, I am feeling sad. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling hopeful. I think it's going to be okay, whatever it is. Whatever feelings they are, don't deny it. You need part one and part two so that you can say the last part, which is, okay, now what am I going to do about it? I think a lot of people during COVID felt crushed. So they couldn't do anything about it. So there was no third parter to kind of fulfill the cycle, fulfill that circle kind of thing. But a lot of times this is happening. I feel something. Okay, now that's there. What's the plan? How am I going to deal with it? So when it comes to the fertility, right? You go through all the stuff. You're feeling everything. Make sure you talk about it. Make sure you communicate it. Make sure you don't let it just fester. And then you go, okay, well, what's the plan? What are we going to do? Because grief and hope can live together. Two things can exist at the same time. It's a beautiful power that we actually have as human beings with our brains, that I can love my children and still can't stand them when they overstimulate me and they're making me nuts. I can love my wife and not like her sometimes.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that it's taking away from each other, but both are true.
Do you think like that missing part of that link sometime is this happened to me? And then when you get to the I feel this way, where people are like, I'm supposed to be strong, or I
Yep.
shouldn't be upset,
It's
or
all the
don't be a
shoulds.
baby.
It's all the shoulds. It's all the narratives that we've been told, or the things that we are carrying. Being able to really admit to yourself and accept that all feelings are okay. And yes, takes a lot of time to unfuse all those foundational thoughts we have that we think are important. I should be this way. I'm a man, just push through, or I'm a woman, I need to act this way, and I'm this and I'm that. No, you're a person who is struggling. Feel your feelings, then deal with it when you're done.
Yeah.
And that's a
Now,
really hard battle that people have.
yeah. Now, being in the space of, beauty and grace, she's Miss
Oh,
United States. That's
thank
her
you for
Miss
asking me.
Congeniality.
I'm doing the pageants all the time.
I feel like there's this image and this like, I'm strong, I deal with things like head on. Like, how did you kind of go into this and deal with, any shame or anything you felt about your insomnia, anything that you struggled with maybe your mental health and things like that, and in relation to pageantry?
I hadn't really been open to it as far as being public about it. I kinda just left everything online, all about my personal styling business and just style by Deidra, have grace and style and learn your personal style type, yada, yada, yada. And then as I got involved in pageantry, I learned that the way to connect with, your judges, but also your audience and the people you're trying to influence as you're doing appearances and you're trying to get out in the community is by being vulnerable and authentic. And the first time that I won a major pageant, that was the very first time I'd been open about my insomnia battle, what I was doing to try to get that back on track and teach other people how they too can take ownership of their own health. And over the last couple years being back involved in pageantry, I took a little bit of a break, kind of hung up my heels, so to speak, for a short amount of time, and then got back into motherhood.
You just took off that sash for a little bit.
Just put on a new one. Anyway, I shifted and I thought my platform was going to be back to insomnia and holistic health because I knew it. And I had this calling of like ping, 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 something on your heart that's even bigger. You need to share this other realm and facet of your life that is even more vulnerable because 20% of women struggle with infertility. Not as many women struggle with insomnia, and it's a little less relatable. We've all had a bad night's sleep every now and then, but this is something deeper. Everybody knows a sister or a mom or a cousin or just a friend that has dealt with some sort of infertility. And I found it as a way
Yeah.
to connect on a broader scale with other women and provide these resources for her as well. Because to me, empowerment means tangible resources. How can I take that education? Knowledge is power, right? That's empowerment.
Yes.
And, even with infertility and going the route of adoption, being in the adoption waiting pool for roughly 10 months, nobody knew. The only people that knew about our adoption journey were those that we used as references to to pass the, bar to get into the adoption waiting pool. So that
Mhm.
circle of trust was very, very small. I mean, my own mother didn't know. My very, very best
Oh,
friend
wow.
actually had gone through IVF herself in order to have her own children. She didn't know. One of my other best friends, she did know, but honestly, I had to tell her to stop asking because I'd sit there for months and months on the waiting list. Hey, how are the synopses going? Have you got any calls? Have you got any matches? And I had to tell her, no news is the news. When something
Yeah.
changes, I will tell you because there's an emotional roller coaster you go on. You get this information about a young woman. Maybe she'll pick us. Maybe we get interviewed. Maybe we don't. Oh no, it fell through. And you can't sit with it for too long because you gotta move on to the next thing because you might get a new synopsis the very next day, you never know, or you might go a
Mhm.
month without getting any
Right.
information about an expecting mother, and just being able to be more open about it now this time around because we are back into the waiting pool now, we've been back in it for 2 years. It's a lot it's a big weight off of my shoulders because now
Mhm.
there's a community that I've built both online and private Facebook groups that of women I don't even know in person, but then
Yep.
just my community of friends that can support me and see the emotional tolls that it takes, but also the joy that I have as a mom of only one child. Declan has
Mhm.
brought immense joy to our lives, and if that's my only blessing in this life when it comes to children, I'm at peace with that.
So here's my last question, Ellie. I want to know if you could go back and speak to yourself at the lowest point of your journey, what would you say?
I would say that it's okay for how I'm feeling and that there's nothing wrong with me. And I need to be patient for everything to just work itself out, figure it out, have the right people, the right things in my life. I mean, I live in Las Vegas. One of the reasons we moved out here was just the slower lifestyle,
Yeah.
the peace, the calm. I needed that for my Crohn's. I mean, my wife has been a savior. She's a dietitian. She helps me, amazingly, but also just she has my back 100%.
Right.
Like that's something that I needed to rely on and remind myself that I'm not broken. I'm just bent a little bit, and it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me, but that is who I
Mhm.
am, and it's okay. It's a heavy burden, but a beautiful thing that makes me who I am, and that
Yep.
kind of acceptance of the totality of who I am is something that's
I
just
like to
very
say you
important.
married well. That's what I
Yeah,
say to
I did
my
marry well.
family. Same question for you.
I wish I could go back and tell myself the word patience. So, about a month into our training program, we had to go through a Zoom meeting and we write down as part of our training. On my paperwork, I wrote down paragraph after paragraph. And my husband, man of few words, wrote down one word. And no offense to him, he doesn't spell the best. It's ironic that he spelled this word the way that he did. He's a doctor of chiropractic. So typically, whenever I see him write the word patience, it's in the term of
Yeah.
patience in the clinic, right? Even if he's talking about patience being the verb, the action. And about 10 months later, we got a call that a young synopsis 17-year-old girl, PJ, would like to interview us. So you need to be in Idaho by this date on this time. And we said, okay, we'll move heaven and earth. We will be there. It's a 3-hour drive. We got it. We'll be there. And, there's nerves going into it, etc. But we just told ourselves we just need to be the people on paper that we are in real life. And you got
Yep.
this. As Hitch would say, don't mess it up. In the movie Millennial. And turns out that young woman's first name, P, for her initials, stood for patience.
Oh,
Mm.
The anchor to all of this turned from a verb into a noun. And I know that that little boy was meant to be in our lives. And my husband, whether he knew it or not, told God and the universe that day to find us patience. And
wow.
it did. He did. God did. Even though Declan wasn't even conceived yet by that point. That was in November, and my son was conceived in March.
I love that story.
Mm,
So
That's
happy.
beautiful.
amazing. I want to thank you both so much because this was an amazing talk. Fertility is something that I'm going to start to go through myself. And I think that this is really important for a lot of men and a lot of women to hear. So I just want to say thank you to you both. And this was really fun.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
for having me.
Of course. Of course. All right. So thanks so much. And maybe we'll talk to you again later. Before you go, if this episode resonated with you, or you're looking for extra support for yourself or for a loved one, you can explore providers and book an appointment by visiting spoonly.care. Use the code SpoonlyPod15 for 15% off your first appointment.